You've already started to listen to a MultipleSources.net podcast, and for more episodes of It's Always Sunny in Phoenix podcast, as well as other content such as other NBA teams, pro wrestling, and even comic books, oh what? Visit MultipleSources.net. And if you want to join the MS family, go to their website. MS is always looking for more writers and other podcasts, as well as video editors. If you want to join the family, just go to MultipleSources.net and check out the sidebar or something. They got something set up. Check it out.
Are you ready? Oh, yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to It's Always Sunny in Phoenix, a weekly podcast where we keep you up to date on everything Phoenix Suns basketball. Today, we are going to give you our pre-preseason quick takes and talk about what we expect to see out of the Suns this year. After that, we'll talk about a few teams that we are excited to watch play this season. I'm Charlie, and I have Mitch and David with me today. How's it going, guys?
Well, I'm just going to start off by saying that our hot takes are about as hot as the cheese down in Phoenix, so be excited.
The quick takes. Quick takes.
Oh, well, I wanted to call them hot takes, so
Hot quick takes.
we'll go with that. Hot pocket takes.
Hot pocket
Hot
takes.
pocket.
All right. I'm doing well. Just watched the U.S. win the gold medal in basketball again. And I'm excited to hear what our new writer, Ben, has to say next week. Maybe get some buckle up Buckaroos moments from him after that Australia-Spain game.
Yeah, it would be great to have new writer Ben on again.
I love having new writer Ben on.
New writer Ben until we get a new writer, which makes new writer Ben just writer Ben.
Or should we just continue to call him new writer Ben, even though he wouldn't be the new writer at that point?
I don't know.
That's up to Mitch, I think. Mitch is the head honcho here.
Well, I guess we'll have to think about it. We'll have to brainstorm after this.
We'll do that. And before we get into the show here, hit us up on social media. Our Twitter is @SunnyandPHXPod. Check out our Facebook under the name Phoenix Suns, multiple sources. Our email is sunnyandphxpod@gmail.com. And, of course, check out our website at multiplesources.net/Phoenix Suns. All right. We will all admit that we were pretty thin on the Suns coverage last week, so we're going to bring it today with these pre-preseason quick hot takes. Thank you, David. And some things we want to discuss today are our expectations for our three rookies and which Suns will show the most improvement heading into this season, and what we expect to see from the team as a whole. But first, some pretty cool Suns-related news coming out this week. LeBron James had a pretty awesome thing to say about Devin Booker on Uninterrupted's Open Run podcast when asked about who was the most promising young player in the game. James said, quote, "If it's someone who is under the radar right now that I believe is going to be a really, really, really good all-star player in the league, it's Devin Booker from the Phoenix Suns." So, that is obviously some high praise from the King. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I hate having to agree with LeBron, but this is definitely my one time where I can agree with him. And, yeah, I mean, we're high enough on the Booker bandwagon that, like, well, duh. But I'm starting to almost think, are we going to end up in a Mike Conley situation where we're talking about how underrated Booker is, and he's probably underrated? Is that how it is? Is that the Mike Conley situation where, like, to casual fans he's, like, underrated, but to actual fans it's like, okay, he might be a little overrated? I mean, Booker's going to meet those expectations, so he's not going to be overrated, but...
Yeah, with this contract Conley got, I'd say that's maybe a good way to put that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I agree with LeBron, too, and we talk pretty much every week about how good Devin Booker is, and everyone seems to agree with us. No one really gives us much pushback on that one. But what I will say is I think next season it's going to be big for Booker, and he's got some pressure. He's getting a lot of praise from players around the league, Dwayne Wade, LeBron now, from fans. Everyone's expecting really big things. And, I just think we have to make sure that we're not too quick to dismiss him if he slumps a little bit, because I don't really think he's going to slump, but he's still very young, and it's going to be an interesting season and a big season for him for sure.
I think so too. And if we see his numbers go down a little bit, and if we have a healthy Bledsoe and Knight on the roster all season, that's something we really can't worry about. It's not going to be all on his shoulders again this season, but
right.
If he's hot, he can carry the load. We all know that.
Yeah, and I could also see him being in almost an Anthony Davis situation where he starts getting these like ungodly expectations, where people were saying that Davis was gonna or needed to like win MVP and Defensive Player of the Year and lead the Pelicans to like a 4 seed in the West like this last season, and he didn't meet those, but he still had like top 5 numbers, and then he was left off any All-NBA team. I could see something kind of almost happening with that with Booker, where people start getting to this point where there's these ungodly expectations, and even if he's still really darn good, then some people will be like, well, he's not that great, blah, blah, blah. I'll pick Zach LaVine over him or something.
Well, I definitely hope we can compare the career trajectories of those two, Davis and Booker, so I like that.
I'd be fine with that.
Let's hope that goes that way. And, speaking of that, a lot of the talk is Devin Booker versus D'Angelo Russell. That gets brought up a lot. I know David has a little trouble with this topic since he has that soft spot for the Lakers, which I don't approve of. But do you see that comparison going through this season too, or do you think Booker's maybe get a little loftier and maybe people say Booker versus Klay Thompson right away? Or am I getting ahead of myself?
I'll go ahead and go that's definitely getting slightly ahead of yourself. As the top 2 guards in the from the draft or last draft, they're going to be probably career-wise, at least for the next, or at least through the rookie contracts, they'll probably be compared. And when it comes time for them to re-up their contracts, those contracts will be compared. All that stuff's going to be compared. Which is really funny because everyone was talking about it was going to be Moutier and Russell who was going to be better, not Russell's obviously better than Moutier, but is Russell better than Booker? So, just how the draft is really almost just a crapshoot. So I think that, personally, I like both players. I think they are different personalities, kind of, even though they both seem kind of like they're going to have a little bit of that alpha dogness. I think they're going to have different games. I think that Russell can be a top 5 point guard, but I also think that Booker can end up being like the first or second best shooting guard or guard in general in the league. So that's kind of where I'm going to leave that. I think that Booker is better right now, but I think D'Angelo Russell probably has like better two-way potential. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that all makes sense, and you bring up a lot of good points, and I agree with what you're saying. I think it's just they will be compared for sure because same draft class, all of that, like you said. But their games are just so different, and their roles are very different. So I think it will be a little tough to compare what they do because, depending on the health of other players this season, Booker won't be playing quite the same way he did last year. He won't. He could still make a lot of plays, but the team won't be relying on him to be the team's main playmaker. Hopefully, because Booker can thrive as a spot-up shooter. He can make plays, but it'd be nice to see him be able to spot up a little bit more and not have to carry the load himself the whole time. And D'Angelo Russell is, I just think he's more of a playmaker, facilitator kind of guy, and their roles are very different.
Yeah, and also, we haven't really seen D'Angelo run an entire offense by himself. If you want to compare the two, the entire season he was sharing the ball with Kobe, Jordan Clarkson,
Right.
Lou Williams at times. Who all these guys are ball dominant players. I would like to see in this Luke Walton system a little bit more of D'Angelo carrying the offense, and then coming back and comparing the two players.
Yeah. For
Yeah,
sure.
they're kind of switching roles from last year to this year. Booker will probably take a little more of a backseat while Russell steps into the forefront a little more. So that'll be interesting to watch over the year.
Definitely agreed.
Cool. And let's move on to a little more Suns in general and talk about the 3 rookies we have. We drafted Dragan Bender, Marquise Chris, and Tyler Ulis, and it looks like they'll all be on the roster this season, and they'll all have the opportunity to see some playing time, I hope. So what do you guys think? Let's start off with Bender, go in draft order, I suppose, and just let's talk about what we expect from him. We don't need to get into numbers or predictions or anything, but just his role on the team and what you expect.
Yeah, so I'll take this one first, I suppose. I love our pick taking Bender, and what I am hoping to see is a lot of progression. Summer League, he still looks like he's got a lot to work on, and I'm hoping to see him, learn a lot all season, maybe have some increased minutes as the season goes, work on some post moves, work on his outside shot, get more comfortable with the pace and the size of the NBA, and just gradual improvement, I think, is what I'm looking for throughout the season.
Yeah, if we're going to talk about player comparisons, it's going to be really unfair for Dragan Bender because Porzingis was able to play so well right out of the gate last year. Bender's going to be compared to Porzingis the entire season. So, if you're going to look at a guy to more compare him to, if you're looking like a Tony Kukoc, Kukoc in his rookie season averaged, 10 points a game, I think? Yeah, 10 points a game, 4 rebounds, 3.4 assists, and a steal. I think those numbers are a little bit more than we can expect from Bender, but I think that Bender might actually see some time at small forward this season. We kind of saw it during Summer League just because he can stretch the floor and he can play against defensively. He can play against quicker guys and stuff, so we might be able to see him play a little bit of that. I don't expect Bender to have a really big role. I don't expect him to be getting 20 minutes a night. I expect maybe 10, 15, maybe. 15 probably at the max. And probably putting up a couple of points on some lower efficiency than he was able to average last season over on, I don't even remember what team he played.
Maccabi Tel Aviv.
Yeah, Tel Aviv. Sorry. That one. Probably some less efficiency as he gets accustomed to the NBA game and the speed and all that kind of stuff. So, 10, 15 minutes, I would assume that we're going to be looking at. Anything more than that is either, it's a surprise. It's not either or. I would be surprised if he was getting more than 15 minutes a game.
Yeah, you brought up some great points that I had written down here that I wanted to note, and I want to see him guard small forwards. Just name any small forward in the league. I think that would be interesting to watch, like Jimmy Butler or Kawhi Leonard. Those guys are superior athletes and definitely stronger, but Bender has that length and that quickness is there for him. And we saw him move his feet, shuffle his feet, move laterally really well. So I'm excited to see that. And then on the other side, if we go small ball or another team runs out small ball against us, I want to see him stay at that 3 or 4 or even at the 5. If someone tries to go small ball, we still have a 7-1 guy out there who can keep up with anyone you put on the floor pretty much. So that's something I'm really looking forward to seeing this year and how we use him in. He'll be a role player this year. Definitely the definition of a role player. When we can get him in there, to take advantage of his abilities the best and the best matchups, I don't see Watson hesitating to bring him in. Excuse me. But anyways, I was thinking about this, and for each player we should maybe take a guess about it, but do these guys, do they see D-League time?
No.
We have the Northern Arizona Suns. Do they ever get sent up there?
I don't think so. One other thing that I just thought about as well with Bender is I would be interested in seeing if he gets to play alongside Tyson Chandler at all, with Chandler at the 5 and Bender at the 4, because I think they're the same height, but they're very different players. I'm very interested to see if there's any minutes like that and what that looks like for the team. But anyway, I don't think he gets D-League minutes.
That's a Twin Tower lineup I could get behind.
Yeah, I'm okay with that Twin Tower lineup. Actually, I think I'm okay with every Twin Tower lineup that doesn't include both Len and Chandler on the floor together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's about right.
I honestly don't think that either any of our rookies are going to end up at D-League time, which is kind of odd. I know that we're supposed to be, development, and that's the whole point of it, blah, 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 blah. I just don't think our guys need that as much. Which, as much as they need to develop and as raw as guys like Chris and Bender are, I feel like that D-League isn't going to help them. It's going to be some more just work with the NBA coaches, and that the D-League minutes wouldn't help them as much. Maybe I am completely overrating our guys, but
I'm not the kind of guy to start an argument just for the sake of arguing, but I think maybe we could use the D-League for these two bigs that we have. I think Alan Williams might be a little more ready to go than... I think he could fill those power forward minutes for us, maybe some center, I don't know. I think he could fill up some minutes, and if he's beasting like we've seen him beast, I think we could afford to send Bender or Chris down, and just maybe for confidence. Like when a pitcher in the bigs goes down and he goes down to the minors to pitch a couple rehab games, those do a lot for confidence too, and that's kind of how I would use the D-League. And with our depth that we do have now, which is interesting, we're pretty deep at about every position. I could see all the guys making little runs there. Now that it's just a couple hours north and not all the way in Bakersfield, maybe we'll do that a little bit more.
yeah, it's possible. I'm still just not sure. I think from what I've heard is that our organization stuff isn't really as keen on sending those guys down to the D-League, and is more keen on giving them NBA minutes. So we'll see. And just from that, I'm kind of just basing all my stuff off of that and going from there. So
Yeah, I think what both of you are saying is very good. I do think it will be more beneficial for those guys to see NBA minutes, but I know one thing that the D-League is really pushing for is what you're saying, Charlie, is to have these teams closer to their affiliate so you can send guys down for little stretches to build their confidence or rehab, or if there's a bunch of injuries and you need to call a guy up or two and sign a couple 10-day contracts, it's a lot easier. So I mean, I see the benefit of that, but I do think that the most beneficial thing for these guys is to see NBA minutes.
Okay, cool. So before we move into Marquise Chris, while we're still talking about the D-League, does he have more of a chance than Bender to get sent over, or who do you expect more out of this year? Let's start with that.
That's a good question.
So I know I am on the polar opposite of almost everyone, because I, for some reason, am very much under the impression that even though Chris is more raw, his game is going to just translate better to the NBA so far. Like, what he can do right now is a better translates better, and I think we kind of saw that during Summer League a bit. is that what he can do good right now, which is handling the ball, his jump shot, that kind of stuff, that is going to translate really well to the NBA. And while he is more raw and needs more development, I feel like he might be able to get some more minutes than Bender at times, just because of that jump shot and that handling.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I am completely on my own island. No one is. I'm by myself. I am under this whole impression. People are telling me I'm crazy. I probably am, but I'm just throwing that out there. My opinions are my own, and you can laugh at me later, or I can laugh at you. Either way.
Okay, real quick, when you brought up Chris's handles, we watched this live at Summer League, I'm pretty sure. Caught the ball a little outside of the elbow on the wing. He had a big guy on him. Went between the legs, behind the back, spin move into the lane, and one, I think. He got the bucket. He may have got fouled too. But 6'10", 6'11", with that kind of skill, yeah, I can see how you think that's going to translate better right away. And also, maybe if you just look at points and rebounds, Chris will probably have the better stats than that. But I think Bender will do more for the team as a whole. Maybe the stuff that doesn't show up as much, like the offensive lineman of our basketball team, maybe.
Yeah, and that's something that you saw in Summer League too, is that even when Bender wasn't having the stats, when he wasn't having the stats, when you're watching him kind of play and maneuver around with screens, try and get guys set up, he probably is. He's much better at that right now than Chris is, for sure.
One thing I really want to see from Chris is him learning how to harness his athleticism a little bit more. He is very, very athletic, and we saw that in Summer League with his putback dunks and alley-oop finishes and that kind of stuff. He's got a ton of athleticism, and he really, I think, just needs to learn how to use it and how to use his body. I mean, he's an 18-year-old kid in this grown man's body. He's just got to learn how to do that kind of stuff, and our coaching staff will help him and develop him. But what both of you are saying is very interesting as well, and I'm really excited to see Bender and Chris gaining some chemistry together, because they're part of our future core of talented big guys, and having some chemistry between them, developing friendships, I think will be really important to their chemistry on the court.
Yeah, how about this? Do you guys see Chris and Bender on the court at the same time, non-garbage minutes in this season? Go.
I think so.
I would love to. I hope so.
Yeah, that's exciting.
I definitely think that we're going to see those guys play together, even if one of them may be in a role that they're not going to necessarily be in. But, we even heard Watson talk about it, running some spread pick and roll and stuff with either Chris or Bender as the ball handler and the other guy as the screener. So I wouldn't be surprised to see... Actually, I wouldn't be surprised. I am almost guaranteeing those guys are going to see minutes together.
I think a lot of it kind of depends on how the season goes, too. If we're winning a lot of games early on and they're not playing together and it's working, then maybe we'll stick with that. I don't know. But if we don't pick up a lot of wins early on and it's not looking super promising to get the 8 seed or whatever in the West, which I know is a stretch, but I think we'll experiment with that kind of stuff a lot more. So we'll see how the season goes once it gets started.
Right on. So anything more about the power forward duo that we drafted before we move on to Ulyss?
No,
I don't think so.
Let's move on to the pride and joy.
Oh. Hey, I love Tyler Ulyss, and anyone that watched the Summer League loves Tyler Ulyss too. That guy can play some defense. He's scrappy, and not just because of his size. He's all over the place. He's on you. So I think he will be great to have, especially when we're playing teams with smaller point guards. I'd love to see him come in for Bledsoe or Knight, however the situation is going, and getting some minutes early on in his career. And, we gave him that first round contract, even though we drafted him in the second, so he has his place here. What do you guys think it is?
I think that right away his role is going to be to fill what Ronnie Price did last year. I love Ulyss's attitude. I love his fearlessness, and if you saw the rookie AMA on Reddit, he's pretty high on himself. He's got a lot of confidence. Hopefully that doesn't get shaken. I don't think it will, but he's very, very confident, which is good for a young point guard. But yeah, filling Ronnie Price's role. And the thing I hope is that he doesn't get frustrated with having that role.
Yeah, if he's going to be anything when it comes to frustrated, it's going to be because he thinks that he needs more minutes. And
Right.
I think when he plays, it's going to be one of those things where maybe some of the fans start to agree with him that he needs more minutes. This dude has been a straight-up competitor in every level of basketball that he's played. He has been he's stood up to adversity. He's been told that he's too small. He's was picked in the second round because of his size. I think that he's going to probably end up being a draft steal in a lot of people's eyes, fall into the second round, because dude's going to play and dude's going to be able to play. And he's going to play hard defense. He's going to be a true point guard, basically, as a facilitator off the bench. He's going to be in that Ronnie Price role. And I think that as the season progresses, he could end up with even a slightly larger role.
I think so too, and I would love to see. I think once we get into the season a little bit, it'll be when it's time to bring off the next guard after Bledsoe, Knight, and Booker. Who's the next guard off the bench? Is it Barbosa? Is it Goodwin? Is it Ulyss? I think that can definitely be Ulyss's, and maybe it'll be Barbosa to start the year a little bit and kind of ease him in, but I could see Ulyss stealing some of those minutes from Barbosa, and a good thing about Barbosa is I don't think he'd mind too much either. So I just like the chemistry that the team has because we're drafting guys like Ulyss now. His attitude on the court, it's not to go out there and get buckets. It's to go out there and win. It's to go shut down his guy, get that assist, get that steal, and those are what you have to do to be a good ball player, and he has it all figured out. I'd like to see it translate to the court.
Yeah, for sure. And when we look at team chemistry, again, we already know that Booker and Ulyss are friends. So that's going to help immediately. But I think that Barbosa could be a great mentor for both of them together. And that's going to be really exciting to see, especially for Suns fans like us.
Yeah, definitely agreed. And I want to say, because just real quick, one last thing on the Ulyss front is I would not be surprised if when Ulyss and Booker are playing together, if Booker ends up elevating his play, just feeding off of Ulyss. Feeding off of the energy that Ulyss is going to bring. It would not surprise me whatsoever if we saw Booker on huge hot streaks whenever Ulyss is in the game.
Oh, I like that.
Sure.
Getting hype.
Hot pocket
Getting
takes.
hyped.
At the same time, I'm excited to see Booker and Bledsoe play together more. We didn't get to see very much of that last year, and I don't want to count that out. You know, I'm sure that Ulyss and Booker will play together, and Booker's game both of their games will be elevated because they'll feed off each other. But Booker and Bledsoe, I think, could be something special this year.
The Book and Bled Show.
Oh, and we're changing the name of the podcast?
Get that on a
let's do
t-shirt.
that right now.
Yeah, get that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, we're actually going to make a t-shirt of that. So,
Yeah, that
We
you
just
think that's a
decided.
joke, but it's not.
yep. We're doing it.
Yep.
Okay. So, since you guys seem to be leaning against me on this whole D-League thing, does Ulyss have a shot to see some time there? And if not, who do you think has the best chance to see D-League time? Because I want to go to some D-League games this year. I want to see what you guys think.
Well, I'll say, if you go to a D-League game, you should check out the Iowa Energy versus the Northern Arizona Suns.
Nailed it.
Shameless plug.
If you come, I will go to that.
Well, I'll see what I can do. Originally I thought Ulyss was going to get some D-League time. And then all of a sudden we're hearing, nope, no D-League time for Ulyss. He's making the team, and I don't know. We'll see how that goes with the depth we have, bringing in Barbosa and all that. He might get a little bit, but again, I think it's best for him to get NBA minutes.
So my gut reaction is that if any of the three guys are going to see D-League time, it's probably going to be,
Ooh, that suspense.
the suspense is there. And, my brain is telling me one thing, but my heart is saying to go against that and go with what I actually think. So my brain tells me that it would probably be Chris, just because he is more raw. But my heart is telling me that all of the things that I just went over and said, and not to contradict myself. So, after going on that whole spiel about how Bender just needs NBA minutes, I'm going to say Bender. Just because.
You like how I brought that back around on you to get you to admit one in the end?
I know.
I got you.
I
got him.
am against you right now, Chuck. Go away. I'm done. I'm out. Peace.
All right. Well, Mitch, me and you here. Let's move on to the next one. All right, Mitch, who do you think is going to show the most improvement coming into this season from last season?
Interesting. So that's excluding rookies then, since we didn't see them last season, obviously.
Right.
Ooh, that's good. I mean, I want to say Bledsoe because he didn't really play. No, I don't want to go with Bledsoe.
Let's go skill set. Like, who improved overall as a player?
What I want to say is Len. I think he had some improvement last year, and I want to see that continue.
I like that. What do you think, David?
I actually really want to hear what you have to say, Chuck. And let's have you not be the last one to talk this time, so go ahead.
Oh.
Switching it up.
I'm also still trying to think of who I think it is, so.
You're even onto my patterns.
I know.
Okay. All right, so, I really want to say Devin Booker, but that might be a little... Man, if we're talking skill set, I think that Booker probably improved the most this year. But Len is a close second behind him. Booker's numbers probably aren't going to go up a ton. Maybe his shooting percentage will, and his three-point percentage. Those could definitely go up now that he won't be the main man the whole time. Mm-hmm. But, I just see Devin Booker's... if I were to compare it to, this is NBA 2K17, Devin Booker's potential... 90, Alex Len's potential, 82, 83. That's kind of how I see it in my mind and how I base it. So,
I'd be happy with that though. But one other thing on Len is he is going to have a tough time improving as much now because he's got a much more crowded front court of guys that everyone is going to want to see more of. Len isn't this super exciting player. He's a very solid bench big, but he's not the high-flying Marquise Chris or the very versatile Dragon Bender or anything. So it could be difficult for him. He's probably not going to see as much time on the floor, and hopefully he can still improve quite a bit with reduced minutes.
All right, so time for some Hot Pocket takes. I'm going to actually go with someone who didn't play the entire season and who I am very nervous about ever being able to play a full season, and that's TJ Warren. I love TJ a ton. I am extremely nervous that he might not ever be able to play a full NBA season, even though he's only been in for 2 seasons. But if I'm going to get on someone for just continuing to improve and thinking that they're going to improve just because they continue to work on their game, it's TJ Warren. You saw his percentages jump up from last year to where he was not on nearly enough attempts, but was doing 50, 40, and like 77, I think it was, or whatever, or like 79 or something on free throws. I think one thing he's going to do, having close to 100 NBA games finally under his belt and getting there, is going to be working on that consistency that we haven't seen as much from him, where he will have big games and then kind of disappear just because either he's because he's not trying to force anything. I could see him continuing that efficiency that he always has, but getting his consistency up and maybe showing some flashes on the defensive end a little bit, because if there's one thing I know that TJ's going to do, it's going to be that even with the broken foot, he was continuing to work in whatever ways he could. So,
yeah, I love Warren. I love his Twitter. It's rare when he tweets, but like when he does, you're like, yeah, TJ, get it. You just like in the gym. Like I can't remember the exact tweets, but like they're about ball. They're about getting better at ball. A lot of them are, at least. And like that's what I think of him. I think of him while he's rehabbing, like he's in the gym, still getting up shots somehow. He's doing something to get better. And man, I really hope he's another guy that can stay healthy for the whole season, because he gets buckets. That's his nickname. So
Yep.
yeah.
That reminded me of one thing too. Sorry. Speaking of social media really fast. Congratulations to Eric Bledsoe on getting engaged. We saw that on his Instagram. So
good stuff.
good job.
Nice little round of applause. There we go.
Anyway,
That was actually me beating a dead horse.
We're not talking about the Olympics yet, so
Yeah, sorry about that. I just jumped in. I do want to go back to Alex Len, though.
yeah.
I do not see him having a smaller role.
Okay.
Maybe
okay.
having a smaller role in the sense that our guards are finally healthy, so we don't have to play completely inefficient basketball. But I think that we can look forward to seeing a little bit more efficiency from Len this season.
Sure.
You know, when he was kind of being focused on to be on offense, he was taking a lot of jump shots early in the game to try and get into a flow, and you could really see that. He was taking these quick jumpers from the elbow, just trying to get in a little bit of a rhythm before going down low. I think we could see him maybe starting off the games with them going low to Len and trying to get that little bit of presence there. And, you know, he's an average defender, but I could see him continuing to step that up with someone like Tyson as a mentor.
Huh. That's interesting. Yeah, well, we'll see how it goes, I guess.
yeah. And so our three guys that we think are going to be the most improved are Booker, Len, and Warren. So let's just really hope that actually happens, and they all just take that next step. It'll show that our drafting process is going the right way. Our franchise is going in the right way. Man, would that be nice. Watching these guys all take another step. That'd be beautiful.
It sure would.
Okay, so let's wrap this up a little bit here and talk about the Suns as a whole. And personally, I'm under the impression that if Bledsoe and Knight and Warren can all stay healthy this whole year, we really shouldn't be selling ourselves short. We can fight for that 8 seed if everybody's healthy, right? What do you guys think?
Yeah, this is a tough question, because I really want to say 8 seed, yeah, we can do it. But it's like every other day it changes. One day I'm like, yeah, we're going to get the 8 seed. And the next day I'm like, I hope we get 30 wins. Oh, maybe 35 is more realistic. I'm so back and forth on it. I would love to be approaching 40 wins. Just anything improving from last season. But the West is tough, so I don't know. It's really hard for me to say. I don't really want to go in with too many expectations.
You know, the West continues to get more and more top heavy. And I think that opens up for teams that are younger and are not expected to make that jump to get there a little bit earlier than possible. We're going to talk about this probably a little later into the podcast, or I guess as we continue to talk in this podcast. But honestly, I think that the signings that we made this season were moves to where we're not gonna like be tanking. We're not gonna try and tank. We're going to play as good basketball as we possibly can, and we're gonna run out. Our starting lineup's gonna be Bled, Booker, Tucker, Dudley, and then probably Len. I mean, could be Tyson as well. And we're gonna run out those lineups and play small, play a lot of 3-point shooting, and try and play that Suns basketball that we're always accustomed to seeing. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're at times during the season in the hunt for the playoffs. I don't think we're going to make it, but these are the years with this top-heavy West where it's possible.
Right. I like to be optimistic. I like to think that maybe that 8th seed is reachable, but I don't think it'd surprise any of us if we fell short of that and maybe even slipped down to 10 or 11. That's not out of the question. But, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I meant for you to actually finish your thought, but I'll just go ahead and jump in.
There wasn't much up there, to tell you the truth. I'm glad you did that.
There's not much up there ever.
Ever.
What changed from our team from last season where we were looking at times where we could have an all-star guard and another guy that was going to be just short of an all-star to this season? What changed on our team? Who did we lose? Who did we gain? I think that's what we need to look at. And our expectations last year were to get into the 8th seed of the playoffs, right?
Yep.
So we lost Mirza, John Lure, and Price. And those were our big signings last offseason, and those are the guys that we lost. We're going to be running out a lineup that's probably better than last season. While we don't have a surefire 4 to start, we lost Markieff Morris.
That one guy.
Big freaking whoop. We might as well have been starting, what was it, a sofa on end or a rolling pumpkin on skates. We might as well have been starting that. So, I think that we're a better team this year, and if we were thinking that we should have gotten the 8th seed in the playoffs last year if everyone was healthy, I think that you can realistically have those expectations this year.
Yeah, I think those are good points, but I think what I'd say I'm more concerned with is progression and development of our young core. So instead of focusing on, I don't think we're going to tank either. I think we're going to play our best basketball every night and do the best we can, and I love to make the playoffs. But what's more important right now is preparing for the future and having good progression of these young guys. And if we make the playoffs, then great. And, it's going faster than I expect at least. But we just have to remember to be patient.
And
remember that 10 months ago, or something like that, 9 or 10 months ago, Eric Bledsoe and Brandon Knight were sharing the back court, and they were pretty regularly putting up 20 apiece. So,
that's true.
That's a big change from how we ended the season last year. We all suffered through the end of that. But with those guys healthy and the addition of Devin Booker playing like a stud, and our new anything could happen this season. Maybe not a championship or a 4 seed or maybe even a 7 seed, but hey, I'm interested to see how it goes. So now that all the off-season trades and signings have slowed way down, let's talk about some teams that we are excited to watch this season. Personally, I'm always excited to see how teams look after they've made some big moves, and see how that chemistry comes along, see if they gel, how long it takes for them to gel. So that's what I like to see. How about you guys? Let's all go through a couple teams. Let's start with a Western Conference pick. David, Rocket.
Not the Rockets. I'm going to go ahead and take a stand and pick up a team that I was originally not going to talk about, and I think are actually going to be better than they were last year, and that's the Dallas Mavericks. this is not something that I was originally going to talk about, and I was thinking about it more and more, and I don't understand why we should think that the Dallas Mavericks are going to be worse than they were last year. They traded, or they didn't trade way, but they switched. If we're going to say the improvements that they made at positions, so they're going from injured Chandler Parsons all the time to Harrison Barnes, who was not injured all the time, had a couple of things here and there during the season that were naggy, but was pretty consistently healthy as a 3-and-D guy. You trade Zaza Pachulia for Andrew Bogut, who's a much better rim protector, is not a sofa, and if you've been watching him during these Olympics, has been a really big part on offense for Australia, and I think that he's going to help alongside with Dirk. You're going to be able to start Wesley Matthews at shooting guard instead of starting him at small forward and starting Raymond Felton alongside Darren Williams, so you're going to have a little bit better defense in the backcourt. You're going to be able to have Seth Curry come off the bench. You're going to be able to, they picked up Quincy Acey, who might not see a whole lot of play, but neither did Jeremy Evans. They are getting some nice undrafted rookies, as well as they drafted A.J. Hammonds. I don't see why there is any reason that the Dallas Mavericks are not back in the playoffs, besides the fact that Dirk is old, but he's continued to be old man Dirk and lead that team. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. I think that they're still a playoff team. I'm curious to see what you guys think.
I think I agree with you. I don't see much of a regression after last season at all. I can see, we like to joke about Harrison Barnes on the Olympic team and all that, but he'll be good for them. Bogut will be solid for them. Bogut for Zaza, that's a pretty good swap of guys, I guess. That won't hurt him too much at all. So, yeah, I think the Mavericks are on track for another playoff appearance. What do you think, Mitch?
I'm with you. I don't really have much more to add. I think you're completely on the right track.
Cool. So how about you pick a team in the West now?
Yeah, the team I'm looking forward to is Oklahoma City. Kind of like you said when you introduced this, it's interesting to see teams after big moves have been made, and they lost Kevin Durant, obviously. So I'm really interested to see how they respond. And they're doing something that's very interesting to me by getting Sabonis, and that's using more big men in a league that is starting to stray away from using big guys and going more small ball and stuff. And Oklahoma City has been very successful with their big men, Steven Adams and Enes Kanter. So I'm interested to see how Sabonis fits. Obviously that's some of my Gonzaga fandom, but I just think it'll be interesting to see how they fit in the league without Kevin Durant and with these talented big men.
Yeah, going off that, I'm interested to see how Westbrook and Oladipo play together and share that backcourt.
Yeah,
that's a really explosive, dynamic backcourt, and man, think about how Bledsoe and Booker or Bledsoe and Knight would match up on those two. That might be pretty rough. So
yeah, it could.
They'll be solid again. What do you think, David?
Yeah, my biggest question about Oklahoma City, I'm a big Westbrook fan. I love the Stash Bros. I really like that team. I liked it with Durant, and I still like it without him. My biggest question is who's going to start? I think right now Andre Roberson is penciled in to start at small forward. Who's going to start at power forward and who's going to start at shooting guard? Oklahoma City has always been one to play a guy that's a little bit of a negative on the offensive end just to overcome his defense, but with that guy sliding over to small forward, do they go with someone that's a little bit more offensively inclined and can space the floor as a shooting guard? We saw kind of in the playoffs where Serge Ibaka was basically playing shooting guard in their offensive sets, and so do they maybe start someone like Ersan Ilyasova to take up that role and play as that guy that's stretching the floor while they have their guards play a little bit more defense and more in the post? So I think the big question for Oklahoma City, who starts? I would love to see Kanter and Adams start together. I love those guys. But, when it comes to shooting guard, it's a really big question. And do they try and start Anthony Morrow to stretch the floor? Do they bring Victor Oladipo off the bench to run that unit? Or do they start both those guys and try and let Westbrook and Oladipo figure it out?
Yeah, that's good stuff. They'll definitely be a fun team to watch, just obviously without Durant. Watching how that whole franchise can recuperate from that and see how long it takes to get back to the level they were. So I'll go with one Western team here. I'm going to pick the Timberwolves. Being from South Dakota, bit of a Timberwolves homer, I suppose would be a good way to put that. Watched a lot of their games on Fox Sports North. A lot of games. But anyways, this roster they have with Ricky Rubio, Chris Dunn, and Tyus Jones, and Zach LaVine. Those guys can all play point guard. Maybe I don't like LaVine as a point guard, but he plays it sometimes. And then I've seen depth charts where they put down Chris Dunn as the 2, as off the bench, though, under LaVine. So, man, that backcourt's interesting. And then you look at the front court of Wiggins, Deng, and Towns. That's solid all around. That team they have nice depth at about every position. And, I mean, off the bench for their wing players, they have Shabazz Muhammad and Brandon Rush. Brandon Rush, you don't hear a ton about him with his Warriors career, but he was there. And he can play, so he's kind of the kind of guy they were missing on that roster to come off the bench. So, yeah, interested to see how the Timberwolves look.
Yeah, Brandon Rush can play some defense. He can shoot the 3-ball. They got Cole Aldrich for a pretty good deal considering what some of these other centers were getting to play backup to Deng and Towns. I'm really high on Chris Dunn. I really like him. I loved watching him in Summer League. I think that he is going to force the Timberwolves' hands when it comes to Rubio. Zach LaVine, he's a shooting guard. We've got Wiggins who who the last 2 seasons has been their main offensive guy and has put up good numbers both seasons. So, that's going to be really interesting. And as I was kind of saying, with the West kind of being top heavy, you're going to see some of these younger teams possibly make a playoff push. And the big question this year will be, how close are the Wolves to the playoffs? We've kind of talked about it already. Do we think that they're a playoff team this year? I personally think that they have another year. But we're going to see this year just how close they're ready, or see if they're ready, or if they're not, how much closer they are. And then, of course, the second question is what happens with Rubio? Does he stay? Does Chris Dunn make as big of an impact as some of us that wear glasses and have a typical white guy haircut think? So that's what I have to say about the Wolves.
Typical white guy haircut as in the Duke starting 5?
No.
Yeah?
I think that's the opposite of what I'm thinking. But
Way off.
Way off.
Way off. My bad, guys.
Oh my gosh.
All right, so real quick, let's flip it over to the East, and we got to hustle a bit, so we'll keep it quick. Mitch, you go first.
In the East, a team that I am looking forward to watching is the Boston Celtics. With the addition of Al Horford, seeing how that looks. They've been a playoff team the past couple of years, been very competitive in the East, and I'm interested to see if they can step up and really be a team to challenge the Clevelands and Torontos of the East.
Good stuff. How about you, David?
I'm going to go ahead and go with the Bucks. I've been rooting for the Bucks the last couple of years. They drafted 50-year-old Thon Maker as well as Malcolm Brogdon, who might be close to the same age, but at least, whatever. They lost Bayless and Vasquez, who Vasquez never actually played a game for the Bucks because he got injured right away. But they added Dellavedova and Mirza, which Mirza, he's going to really solve some of that scoring on their bench that they haven't had. Delly, I think, is going to plug in at starting point guard right away for them. And after really stepping up and showing off how he can be the primary ball handler on offense and dishing out assists, playing that tough defense, being a spot-up shooter, I'm really interested to see how he plays alongside Giannis and Jabari and Middleton, all those guys. And of course, Bucks also got back Miles Plumlee, good old Plum Dog. He'll probably be their bench big behind John Henson, I'm assuming. So we'll kind of see about that. But the big question for the Bucks, are they back to the playoffs? Is this the year where they come back and get into that playoff grind like they did 2 years ago when Jabari got hurt and they had Brandon Knight? Or do their offensive woes continue since they traded away Brandon Knight? That's what I think you really have to look for. Will they be able to get back and be close to contending?
Good stuff. Excited to see what Old Man Thon and the Bucks pull off this year.
What is he, 60?
Okay, I'll be really quick with mine. I'm going to go with the Pistons, and I don't know why, but I like the Pistons even though they have Marcus Morris on their team. There's just something about the bad boys that I like. Just going through their roster, Reggie Jackson and Ish Smith at point guard. That's solid. KCP at shooting guard. And then at small forward, they have Marcus Morris and Stanley Johnson. I'm big on Stanley Johnson. I think he's going to have a real nice career. Then at power forward, they got some guys there. They have Tobias Harris, John Lure, who I kind of miss just a little bit. And then they drafted Henry Ellenson. They got him a little later than a lot of people expected him to go.
Well, I mean, it was because of that paper vertical, so...
Yeah, I can't jump over the block painted on the court. And then if you look at the center spot for them, they have Drummond, obviously. They have Baines, the Australian, who's built like a brick shithouse. Like, holy cow.
Been playing great, too.
And then they have Boban, too. So that's some size there in Detroit. I think they'll be, what were they, 8 seed last year? I think they can improve on that.
Definitely.
Cool. So that's all I got on the Pistons, unless you guys have anything to go with before we get into the plugs.
No, I think we're good.
All right, it's everybody's favorite time of the week. Time for David's Comic Book Corner, Mitch's Face Melting Minute, and then I might come up with something, but we'll see what happens. So, David, take it away.
All right, so my book this week is actually 2 books. It's Volume 1 and 2 of Rick Remender and John Romita Jr.'s Captain America run. It was a Marvel Now title that came out in 2011, I think it is. It's called Castaway in Dimension Z. As I said, books 1 and 2. Basically, Captain America gets trapped in another dimension and then steals a baby. If that interests you, go ahead and read that. Captain America, Castaway in Dimension Z, Book 1 and 2 by Rick Remender and John Romita Jr.
Captain America, Amber Alert.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Go for it, Mitch.
This one is not as face-melting as usual, but I want to plug an album that I really, really enjoy that's very light and fun. 4 Years Strong, they're a pop-punk band. If you like A Day to Remember, you'll like 4 Years Strong. They have an album that came out in 2009 called Explains It All, where they just cover 90s pop-punk songs, and it is a ton of fun. My favorite songs on it are Ironic, as in the Alanis Morissette Ironic.
Isn't it ironic? Don't you think?
Semi-Charmed Life is great, as done by Third Eye Blind originally. Spiderwebs, originally by No Doubt. Those are my favorites, so check that out. It's very quick, and it's so fun.
That's cool. And I'm just going to go back to RimWorld, because I've been playing it so much lately since it came out on Steam. And I think the creator, his name is Tynan Sylvester, so I might have to hit him up and say, hey, I pitch your game on my podcast every week pretty much, so maybe a little reciprocation or something. But anyways, just like I've mentioned this before, but there's new ways to start the game, and the one that I played recently is the Rich Explorer. So normally you get 3 guys or 5 guys drop down, and on this one you're just one guy. You have a nice set of resources to get you started, but it's just you, so you have to do everything for survival, and that is a lot of fun. Things get tricky if you get raided by another village when more than one guy comes. Things get interesting, so It's been the most fun and testing way to play the game so far. So, RimWorld, it's on Steam. Check it out. That's like pitch number 5 for me for them. So, put it on the tally.
There you go.
And I think that's going to do it for this week, everybody.
Ooh, one more thing.
Be sure to...
Sorry.
Oh, Mitch.
We have a subreddit now.
Oh.
r/Sunny and PHX pod. Check it out. There is nothing there yet, but check it out. We'll be putting a lot more into it.
Nothing but a terribly formatted image banner, right?
I tried.
We'll get that figured out.
We will.
But anyways, social media. Twitter is @Sunny and PHX pod. Facebook is the name Phoenix Suns Multiple Sources. Hit us up through email with questions or suggestions at sunnyandphxpod@gmail.com. Head over to our website at multiplesources.net/Phoenix Suns and the entire Multiple Sources blog and podcast network. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Go Suns.